Hi everybody, welcome to a very special edition of Google Developers Live. My name is Kai Lan.
Arun Nagarajan here.
And today we're going to be talking about how to integrate Google Apps with Salesforce using Google Apps Script. And when I say we, I mean Arun's going to be doing this, and I'm going to be following along, just explaining things about Apps Script, because I don't know very much about the Salesforce API at all, whereas Arun knows a lot.
All right, yeah, so actually one of the things that I realized this morning was that the very first time that I worked with Salesforce.com was in 2006. Yeah, which is decades ago in tech. And it was back when we were building some mobile applications and we had to tap into their API, and all they had was a fairly early on version of their SOAP API. So I was very happy to know that things have come a long way. It's much more robust, much more secure, very easy to connect to. And it's always been cloud-based, so it's a great fit for Google Apps in general to exchange data, documents, spreadsheet-type data, things like that. So, and before we kind of dive into the API aspect of things, maybe for yourself and the other viewers that are out there, maybe I'll just give a very quick overview of what Salesforce is, right? So,
What is Salesforce?
Exactly.
Arun?
Ask me the question, right?
What is it?
Salesforce.com is a CRM system. So there are many like it, Oracle, Microsoft. A lot of these vendors have their own CRM system that are on the cloud. A CRM system stands for Customer Relationship Management. It allows you to track contacts with your customers for sales, for service, and it allows you to track accounts and contacts and opportunities against them. Opportunities are things like deals. So you may want to know, I started to market to this customer. It took them a couple of weeks to get to know what it is. Now they're evaluating us against another vendor, and then finally they procure our software and paid us our bills, right? So if you're a small company, a big company, this is a typical flow for a salesperson to have. It's a pretty common business purpose software. So what I'll do is just kind of give you a little overview of the type of components and the contents that a CRM system may have. By the way, everything that I'll be doing today is something that you guys can follow along. Salesforce.com actually has a free developer version, and it's actually, I think it's free unlimited, and allows you to have over, I don't know, hundreds of records for testing purposes, and a lot of good things there. So, and obviously it's great for testing as well. You can actually add your content and get a good sense for what it's like. So, typical CRM system, you get to see your, when you come in, you have the key moving pieces are accounts. So accounts are like companies, right? So these are, if I just go in, you can see all the different companies here. You have United Oil and Gas, Express Logistics, Gene Point, Grand Hotels. Contacts are people that work at accounts. If I just go into contacts, so these are people. They have title, they have phone numbers, they have email addresses, and so on. And opportunities are what I mentioned before. These are sort of the deals. So a single account can have multiple opportunities associated with it. They could be for different amounts, and they could be in different stages with different probabilities as well, right? So those are the three main pieces that most folks will deal with. So that's Salesforce.com. So what we'll do is actually we'll start off real easy, and we'll actually kind of create a spreadsheet to dump some data from Salesforce.com. So we'll try to do three things today. Get data out of Salesforce.com. We will then try to push data into Salesforce.com. And then we'll try to do some interesting workflow type things where we tap into an email and then upload data into Salesforce.com contextually.
Right. So to clarify a little bit, what are some of the things that you can do in Salesforce.com, and what would be some examples of reasons that you'd want to get this into Google Apps?
So there are a couple of important things that I think people end up doing in Salesforce.com. One is, so if you are a salesperson that you're on the road, you want to be able to quickly look up these contacts. You want to be able to log a meeting. You want to be able to say, I met with this person on so-and-so date, the call went well, things like that. Also, if you're an internal sales or marketing person, you're oftentimes bulk editing data, so you want to load data en masse. So you want to import it from a lead spreadsheet and then put it into Salesforce.com, for instance. Or if you're a sales manager, a lot of times you want to run analytics on it. You want to be able to look at what are the different stages of the opportunities that I'm tracking right now, and all sorts of interesting things like that. So those are the key use cases that I see. And I'll actually start with the one that I mentioned, which is downloading data kind of en masse, right? So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'm in Drive, so drive.google.com. And like I said, everything that I'm doing here, you should be able to follow along. Some of it might be a little tricky. But what I'll do is, in this, for the very first one, we're actually going to use a canned script. So someone has written a really nice script that works really well with the Google Apps Script platform. So I'll go to the script gallery.
And the script gallery is, you can always submit something to the script gallery. You can do this when you're in the script editor at script.google.com. Others submit to gallery. I think there's a little bit of confusion between submit to gallery and publish.
Right.
So publish is what you do when you want to expose your application as a web service or a web app, whereas publish to gallery is to publish it into a script gallery here, which you can access right now through a spreadsheet. You go to spreadsheet, you go to tools and script gallery. You can look for things that people have published.
Yep. And I'll go ahead and I just search for Salesforce and try clicking on install. And this is actually one of the members that have contributed it, Sanjay Gidwani. I'm going to authorize his script. I'm going to close. Close it here. And you'll notice that there's a new menu available now called Cloud Connector. Great name for it. In this one, the way it's going to work is it's going to actually ask me for password. So it's using the old mechanism to authenticate. It's going to actually make me type in my password, which obviously may not be the most secure approach. Let me log in here. And then one of the things that Salesforce instituted a few years ago was that for a third-party app to access, it's sort of like an application-specific password, except it's for all third-party apps. And I actually had to save it. They email you it, and I'm going to save that. So that's another reason this approach is not the best.
This is kind of a really funny approach if you think about it, right? Because the whole thing about using OAuth and third-party authentication is that you want to give people a password that's not the same password they're likely using somewhere else, right? So in this case, they're asking for your password and they're asking for additional security. So protecting their system, but they're not protecting you.
That's about it. That's fair. That's fair. So I'm going to log in. So it's sort of stages of things. I typed in my credentials. I have to hit login, and then I can query. So this is actually interesting. So the Salesforce interface is based on the syntax called SQL.
So it's like SOQL.
Exactly. It stands for Salesforce Query Language. It's typo there. This is the right version, SOQL.
SOQL.
And it looks like SQL. It's got most of the properties of SQL, but sort of like some of the systems we have, it's got some things that SQL cannot do, things like group by, some of the advanced structures. So what I'll start off with is some of the simple ones. I can say select ID, first name, last name. So this requires some familiarity with the system, but then it's actually quite nice to use it. So I can say from contact. I hit query, and it's going to dump the data into a nice spreadsheet. So now now I have it into a Google spreadsheet, and I can go ahead and export it. I can save it and share it as a PDF. It's in a spreadsheet, so I can do a lot of cool things. And I can create another tab, another sheet here. And what I'll do here is query for, let's get account information. And I'll show a couple of examples here as to why this might be useful. So I'll say select ID, name from account.
I noticed that this script caches the credentials somewhere.
That's right.
So do you know where it does that?
Yep, it does it under user properties. I don't want to show it because my password will be there. And I'll do.
You almost fell for my trick there.
All right, so I'm actually going to create a new tab first. And there's a lot of benefits to this approach, and I'll show you the real reason why this might be really beneficial for a sales manager. So I'll say select name. Let's see, amount. Remembering my probability from opportunity. Opportunity, if I can spell. All right, so this is going to download the sales deals, right? 100% means it's sold. 60% means the salesperson thinks it's getting close. And then if it's 20%, they just started this opportunity, right?
Is that probability or progress? Well, I guess it depends on how people want to use it.
Yeah, so the field is called probability, so let's kind of go with that. So what I can do as a sales manager, and this is just the fact that it's in, can't see. All right, so let me actually go back in, say data, create a pivot table. So what I can do very quickly is add something as a pivot table and add values for amount. And you can see that very quickly. I have a little stage here, and I can add another field for amount, and this one I'll do just count. And you can see that as a sales manager, I can see that my pipeline, my sales pipeline, is left heavy. So a lot of deals are stuck in the early stages, and I can just kind of go ahead very quickly and then select these guys and insert a chart. And we'll call this a typical pipeline chart. And there it is. So as a sales manager, so ignore the ones that are 100%, that's kind of skewing the data. Just look at this part. I can see that a lot of these deals are just starting up, so I cannot expect a great next 2 weeks because it takes a couple of weeks for deals to move. So these are the types of data and these are the types of reports that a sales manager likes to see. So that hopefully was a little example of why you want to bring it into a spreadsheet. And
that's a very good example. And there's one more thing you could do here, which I think is kind of cool, is that with this chart, you can publish this chart.
That's right. That's right. So you can actually publish it to a site or a dashboard, and then that person doesn't have to have access to the Salesforce.com interface.
Right.
So this data is now published, and very similar to the analytics example a couple of weeks ago.
And that's interesting because Salesforce also provides functionality that allows you to create dashboards. And some people might prefer that method, some people prefer this method. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. I mean, if you use Salesforce natively, it has native access to data. Whereas when you're using Google Apps and AppScript, you have to remember to import the data and always get the newest data. But you also get access to other Google properties, such as you get access to Calendar, Gmail, and I don't know, finance.
Yeah, sharing, all the versioning, all that good stuff, right? And let's actually go ahead and take a quick look at the code as well. This gentleman did a real good job here of calling the SOAP service for the login part, but then followed it up with the ability to call the Salesforce REST API. Sorry, my font's a little funky here. So you can see all the menus that get added, and then let's just take a quick look. So here's the login process. So that's the SOAP message that gets sent up. And then they follow it up with the ability to call the REST data, which is through a very simple function called query. And you can see that that is a really straightforward call. So this is the beauty of Salesforce API, or really any REST API. And one of the nice things that you'll see, hopefully, is that anything that we're showing, hopefully you'll be able to adapt conceptually and also code-wise into any other system that you may have.
Do me a favor and scroll back up real quick to the XML. So a couple of things to point out here are that when we're constructing the XML, it looks like this developer has done so by building the string directly. Another method you could do this is using the XML service. Now, I personally think that for smaller XML documents, sometimes it's just much easier to do it this way with a direct string, because you don't have to remember where in the DOM tree am I, right? You just go ahead, you construct your XML, and you're ready to go.
Right. No, absolutely. Yep, that's correct.
The only thing to be aware of is when you do use tools like XML service, it takes care of escaping for you. So you have to remember which quotes am I using, am I escaping or not escaping, greater than, less than. Just be aware of these things when you're writing XML you want to send as part of an API.
Right, so if my login name had an apostrophe in it, that system would break.
Right.
Which is valid.
Oh, yeah.
Which is valid.
Makes sense.
All right, so so hopefully that was interesting, and that's a script that we didn't have to write. A great member of our community wrote it, and it's available today for you to try out. What we'll do next is actually use the REST API and actually upload some data in bulk. And for this, we'll actually use OAuth.
Okay. OAuth. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So this is going to involve a little bit of copy pasting of the code I wrote ahead of time.
Right. So again, while he's doing this, I'll talk a little bit about OAuth. OAuth, if you don't know what it is, it's a mechanism for authorizing third parties to use your service. So a good description I've seen on the OAuth website is that it's like a valet key for the internet. So for instance, if Arun has a service and he calls it Arun's social network, right? It's got a total of maybe three or four people that are using it, but I want to write applications against this API. So me as a user, you don't want to train your user to give out their password to third-party APIs.
Right.
Now, this is something that was very common in Web 1.0, started to become less common in Web 2.0, and nowadays everything, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, you get an authentication panel. In your browser, your users get to see HTTPS Twitter, HTTPS Facebook, so you know they're giving their password to the right authority and not to Ekai's malicious script.com.
That's right. That's right. And Salesforce actually does a really good job of explaining this as well. They have a really good resource here on their developer force wiki and just be able to just search for it, and we'll make sure to include a link for this as well. It's a really good overview of all the cool things that the API can do, different approaches, and you want to use the web server flow when you're dealing with AppScript. And we will get into this probably deeper into a blog post or a separate session on this by itself. It's a fairly complicated topic, and it's a pretty sophisticated piece of documentation that they have on how this all works. And we are the client application in this case. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll have to, for this, I just created a script against a spreadsheet. So I went to Tools, Create Script Editor. I'm just going to create a blank project.
Right, so he's not going straight to script.google.com. He's creating a spreadsheet, and he's going to Tools, Script Editor.
That's right. And a lot of the ideas will apply even if I start from scratch. In this case, it's a lot easier for me to kind of showcase this in a spreadsheet container. OK, so what I'll do is actually I wrote up all the code ahead of time for both for sharing it and for me to copy and paste. So if you go to my GitHub page, it's all there, so you can follow along as well.
What's your GitHub username?
NTAQ, E-N-T-A-Q.
Does that stand for something?
No. It's don't put me on the spot.
Hey, you know what my GitHub name is?
Yeah.
It's Ikai. I think.
You have a very unique name. OK, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy some of this code. So the one called row utilities, this one should look really familiar. This one is just code right from our documentation. This has all the utilities around converting a sheet into an object, a JavaScript object. Allows you to query for them by a range, and then all sorts of good stuff. So let's go to the raw here, copy this, and then come in here.
And I'm sorry, let's go back. That was kind of on the quick side. So when you're using GitHub, if you're new to GitHub, one thing you're doing when you look at code is that you can copy paste the code, but look for the raw link, because it's sometimes easier to click the raw link and open up just the text of the code. So that's what Arun is doing right here.
That's right. And when they show you the preview, it's really nice to get all the syntax highlighting and comments and things like that. But when you want to copy it, you don't want that formatting. All right, so we paste that in. And I'm going to save this project as Salesforce scripts. And I'm going to rename this just to make sure I understand. So I'll call this row utilities. And then I'm going to create a new script. OK, and we'll call this Salesforce.
You're creating a new file.
I'm sorry. Yes,
yeah.
That's right. Thank you. And I'll go back and then pick this guy, the OAuth code. And I'll call this guy. Again, doing it quickly, but all I'm doing is bringing the code over so that I'm not typing this in front of you. And you can use this today. It's I should say that it's not production caliber. We're working on cleaning that up and publishing it as a sample at some point soon. But it's great to get started and get a sense for what the script does. OK?
I'm kind of already seeing where you're going with this, where when it has the authorization page, I can't wait.
Cool.
Because I can already tell it's going to be really ugly.
I said not production ready. All right, cool. So we got the stuff. So what we want to do now is actually a couple of things. So I want to, in order for OAuth to work, your script is both bound to a container and also published as a web app. So that's kind of a tricky concept to make sure it makes sense to you. So it's got two entry points, one from the spreadsheet, another one when it gets called in from the browser. So if you can think about that, that's necessary for the callback that the OAuth service returns with the token.
Let's try to rephrase that again. So you're saying that we need two entry points?
Yes.
Because when you're doing OAuth, typically in a typical OAuth flow, after you go to, say, your service, arunsocialnetwork.com, and you say, yes, grant ekaismaliciouscripts.com access to my personal info, it's going to redirect you back to my site. So that's what he's talking about when he says he needs to expose a web app, which he's doing right now, because inside this app, Arun's socialnetwork.com is going to pass a bunch of authorization codes that you can then use to do some key exchanges and make API calls on my behalf. Now, again, the scope of OAuth is big and can be very complicated, so we're not going to go too much into it. But that's why he needs a web interface for this, even though he's not going to be serving a web application.
That's right. And hopefully you'll be able to watch it again and get the flow if we're going too fast. But this should all make sense in a little bit. OK, so now what I did was I copied the URL that this service was published as. And what I'm going to do now is go into Salesforce and register a new application. So So this is me telling Salesforce.com that it's OK for this custom third-party application to access my data. And this is the administrator does this. So go to Setup. We'll go down to Develop. We'll go down to Remote Access. And I have a couple of samples, but this is all, you want to do this from scratch. So you want to go down to hit New. So this is the application registration. Again, this is something that a single administrator does for all their Salesforce users. So we'll call this Ikai demo. This is a great live demo, hopefully. And I've saved myself a little logo. I'm going to put that in. And I'm going to just point to our developer site if something goes wrong. And then just use my email address there. And now here's the important bit. It wants a callback URL. So this is the callback URL that the web app calls into, the redirect calls into. Oh, I lost it.
Right. So again, this is the page that he's publishing. This is the page this is the page where Salesforce is going to give back a token. Yep. This is how Salesforce is going to give AppScript a token.
So I'm going to paste that in. Now there's one thing that you have to tweak. So when a script is bound to a container, it's not script.google.com, it's docs.google.com. So this is a manual edit, and hopefully we'll correct this very soon.
Right.
And then another thing that's really great about it is, as an administrator, you can give it domain-wide privileges. So you can make the script, make this application available for all users without them having to authorize it. All they need to do is log in. So they don't get that warning message saying, hey, this is a third-party application, do you trust it? Which may alarm some people. So I won't check it for this case because it's just me for now. So I'm going to hit Save. And what this is going to do is you can see that it just registered this application. Application's called Ikai Demo. You have the callback URL that I pasted in. And there are 2 bits of information that are very critical here, the key and the secret. So I'm going to reveal it. You can use it. I'll delete this after. And this needs to get pasted into the application. So I'll copy this.
And I know that some joker out there is going to try to hack this account, but just so you guys know, this is a test account. You're going to get absolutely nothing of any value out of this.
So what I'm going to do is copy over the dummy one that I had saved in there, delete it, paste it, and then also copy over this secret. So this is a bit of a setup that's, there's an overhead involved with OAuth, but in the end, your users are more secure, their data is more secure, they trust the applications more, so it's a really worthwhile thing to do. So that's what I've done so far, the ID and the secret. So that's the pairing that explains that this code is Ikai's demo application that we registered. All right, so far so good. And I'm just going to quickly test this as well. So I'll just, for now, since I'm in the editor, I'll just pop open this script directly. So I'll just hit Run. That'll make me authorize it.
So this is a demo, but if this were a real script, there are a lot of things that we could do to enhance the user interface. Like for instance, there's the bit about replacing the URL script in docs. We could have made that a UI that came up where we replace it, where we just go ahead and do a string substitute. Right. But we're not trying to do that right now. We're trying to show you guys how to access Salesforce using apps.
Yeah, the goal is to give you guys the sample code, a bunch of recipes, and the building blocks with which you can go ahead and build the greatest Salesforce integration we've ever seen. So I'm going to click on just one option here called Upload to Salesforce. And actually, the one thing that I'll want to do is clean some things up here. So ignore this for the second. Ignore that.
Was that your password out there?
No. Oh, was it in there?
I don't know. We're changing it after the show.
I'm going to hit Run Salesforce Entry Point, hit the button, and what that's going to do is saying, hey, this is the first time you're calling this. I don't know who you are. I tried to log into Salesforce. It wanted me to go in and hit login. So I'm going to hit click here to start. And
it's opening a new tab. And
so now you can see that it says Ikai Demo is requesting permission to access your information. You can see the logo that we supplied, the description, and all sorts of useful things that, that I think is important. And I'm already logged in. That's why it didn't ask me to log in. If I weren't logged in, it would actually make me log in again. So now I'm going to go ahead and say allow. And now you can see that the URL callback, client identifier invalid, screwed something up. Let's take a look. Let's try one more time.
Your client ID. Now, you pasted over the client secret as well as the key, but I don't think you set up the client ID.
No, what I didn't do is once I pasted in the code, I didn't republish it.
Of course.
So this is one of the things that you kind of have to publish it first, and then you'll get the new credentials, and you have to paste it in and then republish it. A little bit of an annoyance. All right, go ahead.
So this is OAuth 2.0 and OAuth 1.0. They had all these different parameters you had to pass in, and one of them, I believe, was a client ID.
That's right.
So I don't think you have to do it anymore in OAuth 2.0, but there you go.
Cool. So I just refreshed it. Hopefully the error message will not happen when you're doing this for the first time. But you can see that at this point, the URL is our published service. So this is the callback that I was talking about. OK? So I can close this window, go back in here into the spreadsheet. Again, so this is not very nice. You could have a little timer in here. You could automatically close it. I was being a little lazy. So let's actually, before I use it, let's set up the context as to why we want to do this, right? So if I go into my accounts section here, contacts, I should say. I have a lot of contacts here, but maybe I want to bulk enter a bunch of contacts, right? I'm an admin. I'm familiar with spreadsheets. I don't want to deal with Salesforce.com directly. So what I'll do is just type in a bunch of contacts. All right, type in some numbers. You want to give a real email out, Ikai?
Yeah, that's fine. How'd you know?
Let me fix this. I think there's some format checkers. I think it makes sure that it's at least numbers, and we'll use our producer, Eric, as well. Eric at test.com. All right, so we've just punched in 3 contacts really quickly. Their names, their contact info. What I'm going to do is go ahead and say upload to Salesforce. And I'll show you the code as well, so that this doesn't seem like magic. And this time, it again says, hey, you know what? You don't have to log in this time. I already have the token, and I've gone ahead and uploaded these people. Beautiful, isn't it?
I'm like laughing at this right now. You made the message the giant title box. So.
Of course, man. So what I'll do is actually go into new this week, and there they are.
Hey.
So the contacts that we just added, hopefully you guys can see on the line there. But that's the power of AppScript, right? So you can work with the simple tools that you're familiar with, things like spreadsheets, things like docs, and then through a couple of clicks, boom, published out to another service.
And there are lots of reasons why you might want to use the Spreadsheets UI to do this. Now, could we go ahead and show us how you would create a new contact using the Salesforce UI?
Yes, new contact.
So we're going to click New Contact, and now you'll see that, OK, you've got to jump around from field to field. So you get a lot more features here, for instance, but you could always modify the script to include additional fields.
That's right.
It's just that suppose that he very quickly entered in 3 contacts.
That's right.
Right? And now it would probably, here you go, it's taking a little bit longer to do it.
And then I would have to do it again, yeah.
And he'd have to do it again and again. So there are definitely lots of reasons, especially other reasons are, for instance, maybe you have a Google form.
That's right.
Attach your spreadsheet.
That's right, yeah.
Their contact
so you, we're not going to show that right now, but for instance, you could just go and say tools, create a form, and it's smart enough to know that the fields are first name, last name, email, and phone. And this is a very simple thing you can publish out.
Very nice.
And yeah, that's great. So I'll show you the code real quick. We won't dwell on it too much because there are a lot of moving pieces. But what it really does is calls the utilities function, get rows data. Hopefully you guys can see that. And then just iterates through all the objects, creates a little post payload, and then just sends it up using URL fetch. So URL fetch is your friend in these cases. And then further down, and you can see this in the script as well, there's a lot of a setup that needs to happen to preserve the user's properties for the token, for the callback server, for themselves. You need to make sure that the authorization header is passed, where the OAuth token that was downloaded is passed up. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind. But hopefully, all the samples will make it easier for you to get started. Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense.
All right, cool. So let's do the last bit, and then hopefully there are some questions as well that we can take. Great. So so the last thing that I wanted to do was let's go into. So I set up this sample account called Arun DevRel. All right. So this account, he's a COO. And he's got a bunch of details about him, the last time I talked to him, the last time I tried to sell to him, and whatnot, right? So this is a contact that I have a relationship with for business purposes.
So I'm thinking about this demo, and we should have named it Colleen, because now it's just going to be confusing.
Yeah, you know probably. Oh, yeah, well, there are a lot of, yeah, I should probably have thought about that. You're right. So what we're going to do for this demo is we're actually going to paste in a new function, which is going to allow the AppScript environment to go ahead and seek into my inbox and find matches for emails from this person. And then actually, if there's an attachment associated with it, take that attachment and push it up to Salesforce as an attachment that's available within the system. So that when I'm collaborating with someone through Salesforce.com, they can reach into this, they can edit it, they can add notes to it, and so on.
Right. So again, to disambiguate the accounts, he's receiving emails from Arun DevRel, and he is Arun Nagarajan.
That's right. And I'll actually showcase that one more time. So I'm going to, so the email associated here is appscript@gmail.com. So that's my DevRel account, developer relations code 4. And I'm actually logged into this account. So this is, you can see that, it's Arun DevRel. And this is my inbox associated with Salesforce. So this is just my test inbox. You can see there's a few messages in there. OK? So what I'm going to do is pretend to be this customer of Arun and hit compose. I'm going to say, my details for you, sending this doc for review. And I'm going to actually, I think it's called like sales detail or something like that. And it's actually a Microsoft Word document as well.
So a lot of reasons why Salesforce allows attachments is that a lot of times you have these things called RFPs, which stand for request for proposal. So typically people tend to use Word or PDFs. Now, as much as I would love to see people doing this in Google Docs, the reality is that there are lots of times when you want to send out a PDF, or perhaps you want to send out a Visio.
That's right.
A Visio doc that says, here's how you would wire up your network.
Right. Yeah, there are a lot of people that haven't seen the light, I guess, with Google Docs. All right, so what I'll do is I'll paste in this other function, and this is called scan email. And for now, we're just going to run it manually, but this, as you can see after this runs, can be triggered every hour or every minute, whatever makes sense for your personal purposes. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go ahead and pick that function to run. And I'm going to say, so it's going to be, now realize that I'm now trying to trick it and read my email. So it's going to make sure that I reauthorize it. Grant access. Close. This time run it for real. All right, so what is it doing? So it's going into this inbox, looks through my email, sees that there's an email from this particular email address, which matches a contact's email address in Salesforce. And then, if the demo gods are with me, there should be a new attachment that wasn't there before, now visible. And it's in fact also converted into a PDF. So I can click on it and view it.
Wow.
Makes
Very
sense?
Nice.
Yeah. So let me just show you the code real quick. So for the purposes of this demo, I made it just so that it scans the last 5 threads. You could go and be a little bit more intelligent, remember where it left off, and do some pretty interesting back off there.
When I've been programming with Gmail app, one thing that I like to do is look for a document that looks for saved searches, because there are a lot of very powerful things you can do with Gmail searches. You can say label dash label. You could say has colon attachment, right? There are lots of things you could do to filter down before you start iterating over things.
That's a good one, yeah.
Since this is a demo, we're just going to go over the last 5 emails.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm cheating. So what I'm going to do is then also look for emails with an attachment. Probably should have used your trick. That's a really good one. Then I'm going to find the first attachment, and I'm going to read the attachment as a PDF. So this is that sort of one-line conversion that AppScript provides that I think is ultra powerful. And then I'm going to take the bytes and then base64 encode it. So this is something that the Salesforce API stipulates. It only likes documents as base64 encoded blobs. Okay? And then it gets the email address of the person. The address comes in this format, so there's a little regular expression magic that happens. Then it sees, is that email address associated with the contact in Salesforce?
Right.
Runs that.
And you're using, that's not SQL, that's
SOQL.
SOQL.
Then it's going to use the original name and attach a PDF extension to it along with some details. give it a parent ID of that person that matches that email address, and then just run it.
And the parent ID, what does that represent?
In this case, the contact ID.
Okay.
So it runs the select against that entity, gets the contact ID like so, and then it associates with the parent. So most objects in Salesforce can have attachments. So I can have a parent ID of an account ID, and that'll be an attachment against the account. So hopefully that made sense. So what we've been able to do is automatically find an email with an attachment in it for people that have an account in my a record in my Salesforce.com instance, and then be able to send an attachment to that record. So this code, again, all of this is on GitHub. Go check it out. Pretty easy to find. If you just go to github.com/ntac, it's the second project there. Hopefully there it is. And then if you just look through it, all the code we talked about is there. And then you'll be able to create a sample account in Salesforce.com yourselves and try this all yourself.
Very, very cool. In fact, I think that we keep talking about so cool, and I think that you're so cool for being able to pull this demo off. I've been waiting for that one. I'll show you. You got to get this.
That's good. That's good.
Let's take a look to see if there are any questions in the in Google Moderator.
Cool.
There weren't any when we started up the show, but it's possible that we have live viewers that, as watching, came up with questions. So we'll see if there's anything there.
I actually don't have a link to that directly, so let me see if I can find it.
Developers.google.com/live. So if you're finding this show from our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Google Developers, you can always find about future live shows at developers.google.com/live. It's going to take a little bit. There we go.
All right, let's see. So could you write an app script to integrate with Salesforce Chatter, Salesforce's social media channel for the enterprise? That would be neat. This is Mark R. from Waltham. So the answer is yes. So the Chatter API is also exposed to the REST interface, and you're able to query against it and run clouds about which people are chatting the most, which people are liking my posts, and things like that. So the social enterprise can be brought into the Google Docs platform as well. Google Apps platform, I should say.
Right. Good question.
Really good question. All right, let's see. You're probably already planning to do this. Please include a few minutes of Goo Salesforce for those who are not using it.
For Goo Salesforce.
I'm not sure what that is, but I'll have to look into that. Hopefully that's a typo, but maybe they were just talking about just an introduction to Salesforce. So another resource that I didn't point out is this REST API. So take a look at this one as well. So salesforce.com/us/developer has all these docs, and this kind of outlines all the real API endpoints that they expose by objects, by version. So you can actually go ahead and take a look at how we figured out that the attachment example, right? So I can just go in here, go into working with records, creating a record. So this is the example that I used to figure out how to upload a contact, for instance. Very straightforward. Cool. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense to me.
All right.
Let's see if he's coming with any more questions. Because sometimes what happens is when we're doing these live shows, more and more questions come in. And if not, you guys know where to find us, and you can feel free to post comments on the YouTube video as well. We're going to take a look at this every once in a while and see if anyone has any new questions or comments. Again, you can always find us at the standard channels too.
Cool.
So, all right. Is there anything else you want to show us?
Let's see. I think that about covers everything that I want to talk about. Hopefully this gives you some ideas, some sort of building blocks with which you can take and build your own cool applications and workflows. Think about integrating with the Google Calendar. Think about doing some interesting things with Gmail labels and start emails and things like that. Do you have any other ideas that would make sense in this?
A very common thing that we used to do is sometimes you talk to people, you talk to prospects, and they're not ready to buy yet. They don't have budget yet, but they tell you, I'm going to have budget in Q3 or Q4. Now, Salesforce does have an interface that says, find me these people when I should contact them. But if you're already using Google Calendar,
right,
that's another very interesting use case.
Yep, setting up reminders and things like that. That's really
and there's so many things that you could do once you integrate with Google Apps. You're taking all the power of Salesforce, which you're likely already using if you're a Salesforce shop, and you're just extending it. Because a lot of times I see people are doing these very manual things.
Right. Right. Yeah. So anytime you find yourself doing something that's mundane or repeatable, find a way to write a script for that.
Right. Okay, so I think that's all we have for today.
Yep,
then,
yeah,
isn't
that
it?
covered all the 3 things that I want to talk about. Thank you for watching.
Thank you guys for watching. Again, we'll be having these shows with various topics, and this is for people that are on the live show. We'll be doing a show about triggers. This will be happening next Tuesday, so check developers.google.com/live, and you'll be able to see when that show is going to be. So if you were watching this show and you're thinking, well, this is all very cool, but I want to periodically update a spreadsheet, or I want to periodically send an email out. Now, I'm pretty sure you can do that in Salesforce, but suppose you prefer, programmatically editing it and sending it out in Gmail. Well, you can do that using triggers, and we'll be talking about how to use triggers, and that'll be happening next Tuesday. So again, go to developers.google.com/live, and you'll be able to find details about future shows. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.